Aloha Kako, welcome to the hearing on the Committee on Culture, Arts, and International Affairs. Today is April 13th, 10 a.m., and we are convening in room 329. Today we have Chair Gates. My name is Vice Chair Tam. Before we get started, I would like to go over some brief housekeeping rules. There is a 2-minute time limit per testifier in order to allow us as many people to testify as possible. Please keep yourself muted and your video off while waiting to testify after your testimony is complete. And after your testimony is complete, the Zoom chat function will allow you to chat with technical staff only. If you are disconnected unexpectedly, you may attempt to rejoin the meeting. If disconnected while presenting testimony, you may be allowed to continue if time permits. Please note that the House is not responsible for any bad internet connections on the testifier's end. In the event of a catastrophic network failure, it may be necessary to reschedule the hearing or schedule a meeting for decision making. In that case, an appropriate notice will be posted. Lastly, please refrain from profanity or uncivil behavior. Such behavior may be grounds for removal from the hearing without the ability to rejoin. With that, let's start with the first item on the agenda, SCR 203, urging the Department of Land and Natural Resources to develop programs to recapture, retain, and share the cultural and environmental knowledge of Limukala. First up, we have Ryan O'Connell from DLNR.
Yeah, aloha, Chair Gates, Vice Chair Tam, members of the committee. I'm Ryan O'Connell, representing the DLNR on this resolution. We stand on our written testimony in support, and I'm available for any questions. Mahalo.
Thank you. Next up, we have Limu Hui with Kuaina Ulu Aomo, KUA. Malia?
Aloha. Aloha mai kako. Aloha. I am Malia Hemuli with the Limuhui. I'm the Limuhui coordinator with Kuaina Uluawamo, also known as Kua. We are in strong support of SCR 203, and we stand by our written testimony. Mahalo.
Thank you. That is all that we have signed up to testify. We do want to note that there are a number of individuals that have submitted written testimony, all in support. Is there anyone else that wishes to testify on SCR 203? Seeing none. Chair, any questions? Seeing none. Okay, we're going to move on to our next item on the agenda, SCR 50, designating the Waianae Moku Puna Council as an advisory resource to the elected members of the Legislature of the state of Hawaii representing the Waianae Moku community. First up, we have Julie Reyes Oda on Zoom.
Hi, I'm here.
Hi, you may begin.
I'm good to go?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Hawaii House Committee on Culture, Arts, and International Affairs for hearing this resolution designating the Waianae Moku Kupuna Council as an advisory resource to the legislature. I'm Julie Reyes Oda, math teacher and department head at Nanakuli High and Intermediate School and HST Leeward chapter president. Leeward district covers Pearl City, Waipahu, Ewa, Kapolei, Nanakuli, and Waianae. Nearly 1 out of every 4 teachers in the state teach in our district. I'm here to support SCR 50. I attended the Waianae Moku Kupuna Council at Pokai Bay twice this year, and I spoke at both of them. And it was largely because of this group that I co-wrote that article with Matt Wire in the Civil Beat on March 28th about the lack of Hawaiian immersion schools in the Leeward District. Leeward District has the largest number of Native Hawaiian students of any DOE district, concentrated mostly on the Waianae coast. And being that we are a bilingual state, language is essential in maintaining Hawaiian history and culture. The Waianae Moku Kupuna Council spoke of the brilliance of Hawaiian people, and the only way to keep our history alive is passing it on to the keiki from our kupuna. It's also important to keep our historic and cultural knowledge close to those who make decisions on our behalf. And the kupuna are the ones who can make this happen. So please support SCR 50. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is all that we have signed up to testify. We do want to note that we have a number of individuals who testify all in support. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on SCR 50? Seeing none, Chair, any questions? Seeing none. Moving on to SCR 179, designating March 10th as pronounce that. In Enact Atoll, the Marshall Islands Liberation Day. First up, we have Office of the Mayor, County of Hawaii.
Good morning and aloha, Committee Chair Gates, Vice Chair Tam, and members of this committee. I'm Jane Clement. I am Executive Assistant to Mayor Mitch Roth and Hawaii County Sister City Protocol Officer. Hawaii County submitted a written testimony in support of SCR 179, and I'm here available to answer any of your questions. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Next up, we have David Panito.
Thank you very much, Chair Gates, Vice Chair Tam, esteemed House of Representatives, committee members on labor, culture, and the arts. My name is David Anatok. I'm originally from the Marshall Islands, and I'll be submitting the testimony orally in support of SCR 179, designating March 10th as the Enact Atoll Marshall Islands Liberation Day. First of all, please allow me to give honor and thanks to the creator above. Secondly, I don't want to be remiss if I'd like to acknowledge the space we're in today, traditional and cultural people of Hawaii. Very quickly, a warm aloha and yakwe to you, Representative Gates, for your ongoing advocacy for our Kofa communities in Hawaii. And also acknowledge Representative Capella, who's our fine representative from Ocean View. I'm extending recognition to others who are on the call, such as let's see, Jane, good to see you. Thank you. And others who continue to advocate for this community. One of the newest community considering and fastest growing community in Hawaii. So let's see, the resolution SCR 179 comes to you from Senator Kanua's office because he's the first to have ever visited the Enact constituents in person out in Ocean View, where they now raise their families and children out in Hawaii Ocean View estates. I think this resolution is timing and essential for the community to consider and for the state to consider really, because it is about cultural identity and decolonization. The 2 points I'd like to highlight from the resolution to kind of share again with us directly from the resolution, whereas the people of the Marshall Islands, including Enact Atoll, experience numerous challenges today connected to the United States nuclear legacy, such as displaced communities that cannot return to their ancestral lands because of the lingering contaminations, and those who prematurely resettled and cannot resettle to the contaminated lands because of health issues related to radiation exposures and many others. Furthermore, it expressed March 10th coming out of the holes Day in Enact Atoll, which began in 1944 during the World War II, a social practice infused with fear, was selected as a
Could you please summarize your testimony?
Certainly. Thank you. So this is to again acknowledge the day and give honor and thanks. It's and I like to quote or make reference quickly to Dr. Neil Palafax's testimony, who couldn't join us today, but highlighted I think what's the main intention of the testimony, which is to acknowledge again the community itself, resiliency, and what they contribute to the state and the community that we now live in. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you so much. Next up, we do have Neil Palafox, who signed up to testify. He's seeing that he's not here. Is there anyone else on Zoom or in person that would like to testify on the measure before us? Seeing none, Chair, any questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on to our next item on the agenda, SCR 118, requesting that the Creative Research and Task Force continue to examine and determine measures and establish policies and programs to build and foster creativity and innovation through the arts, culture, and humanities in the state. First up, we have DVED, Creative Industries.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Georgia Skinner, Creative Industries Division Head, and testifying on behalf of Mike McCartney, our Director for the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism. We support this reso and want to continue to work with the community to provide guidance for a foundational effort to build our creative economy in the state. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. That is all that we have signed up to testify. We do have testimony and support from State Foundation of Culture of the Arts. Is there anyone else on Zoom or in person wishing to testify on the measure before us? Chair, any questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on to our next item on the agenda, SCR 83, requesting the Hawaii Council for the Humanities, State Foundation on Culture and the Arts, and the Hawaii State Public Library System to collaborate for the establishment of a Hawaii State Poet Laureate program. First up, we have Elizabeth Soto.
Aloha mai kako. Aloha Chair Gates, Vice Chair Tam, and members of the Committee on Culture, Arts, and International Affairs. I just would like to add to my testimony in support of SCR 83. Poetry works in tandem with our logical selves. It connects us to the heart of who we are as a society and a community, and it gives us a bones deep understanding of our culture, our past, and our present and our future. And this is one of the reasons among the many that I mentioned in our written testimony, of why I think, why I'm in support of our Poet Laureate program. And I also wanted, just in closing, to add a thank you to Representative Gates for introducing HCR 162, and also to the committee for passing it last month. Mahalo nui.
Thank you. Next up, we have Kealoha Wong.
Hey, aloha mai kako. Thank you for introducing this measure. I'm the current Poet Laureate of Hawaii as designated by Neil Abercrombie, and I stand by my written testimony. On a personal note, I'm super looking forward to seeing the second Poet Laureate be chosen, and the third, and then the fourth, so we can continue this tradition that we have going on to elevate the arts and elevate poetry in our islands, which is so necessary. So thank you for making this progress.
Thank you. That is all that we have signed up to testify. We do have a number of individuals that have submitted written testimony, all in support. Is there anyone else on Zoom or in the audience that wishes to testify on SCR 83? Seeing none. Chair, any questions? Seeing none. Moving on to SCR 72. Establishing a sister state relationship between the state of Hawaii, United States of America, and the autonomous region of Madeira, Portugal. First up, we have DBED.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. DBED will stand on its written testimony in support and is here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. That is all that we have signed up to testify. Is there anyone else on Zoom or in the audience that wishes to testify on SCR 72? Seeing none. Chair, any questions? Seeing none. We're going to move on to our next item on the agenda, SCR 121, urging the counties and the state to work with Hua Makahikina and Kumuhula to establish policies protecting hula. We do not have anyone signed up to testify. Is there anyone on Zoom wishing to testify or in person? Seeing none, and there's no way you can ask questions. And we're going to move on to our next item on the agenda, SCR 185, denouncing Russia's actions causing a humanitarian crisis in Ukraine and urging the United States Congress to take concrete action to support Ukrainian refugees and to increase the refugee limit for the United States and increase funding relating to those efforts. We do not have anyone signed up to testify, but we do have written testimony in support from the Hawaii Office of Community Affairs. Is there anyone on Zoom or in person wishing to testify? Seeing none, and there's no one to ask questions to, we're going to move on to our next item on the agenda, SCR 212, requesting the governor to establish a Hawaii Commission on the United States semi-quincentennial by executive order. We do not have anyone sign up to testify or anyone who submitted testimony in support or opposition on this measure. Is there anyone on Zoom or in the audience that wishes to testify on SCR 212? See none, we're going to move on to our next item on the agenda. SCR 132, requesting the University of Hawaii to report on the Permanentesan Council's system-wide efforts to improve the status of Filipinos at the University of Hawaii. First up, we have Hawaii Friends of Civil Rights.
Aloha, Vice Chair Tam and Chair Gates. Thank you very much for hearing this measure. My name is Amy Agbayani, and I stand by the written testimony submitted by our organization, Hawaii Friends of Civil Rights. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Dr. Charlene Bumalog.
Oh, aloha. Aloha, Chair Gates, Vice Chair Tam, and members of the committee on the chair of, on the Committee on Culture, Arts, and International Affairs. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify for this resolution. My name is Charlene Bumanglag, and I'm testifying here as an individual. I do not represent the University of Hawaii. I want to just point out some key things about the status of Filipinos in our state and then at the university, and why this resolution is so important. So first off, Filipinos are actually the largest non-white majority in the state, making up more than 25%. We have reports on students, but we have less about faculty, staff, as well as executives. But just to share some information, Filipinos are actually the most underrepresented faculty at the flagship institution, University of Hawaii at Manoa. There's only about 3.3% of faculty there, and only 2.6 who are tenured. So this underrepresentation of Filipino faculty demonstrates the wide inequities in the workforce, which has major implications for the UH system, but also for the state of Hawaii. So two major impacts, which are internal and external. Internally, this underrepresentation means that there's less or no representation of faculty at the table for to engage in critical decision-making processes that determine the visibility of Filipinos in major reports such as accreditation, strategic planning, as well as the allocation of resources for things such as course offerings, programs of research, as well as recruitment, retention, and advancement of students, as well as faculty, staff, and executives. And so this has an external impact because it doesn't enable timely research, timely teaching, and timely service. And one of the key external impacts that I do want to point out is that unfortunately, in the area of morbidities and mortalities, where Filipinos have the highest numbers of COVID-19 in the state. So most underrepresented as faculty, but actually have the highest numbers of COVID in the state. So this is the wide gap in disparities in the workforce. So basically, I'm here to support this resolution in strong support of a comprehensive report on the status of Filipinos to guide with UH's decision-making process and the allocation of resources so that we can respond more impactfully.
Please
and
summarize your testimony.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity to testify in strong support of this resolution.
Thank you so much. That is all that we have signed up to testify. Is there anyone else on Zoom or in person that wishes to testify on SCR 195? Seeing none, I don't think there's anyone else having questions. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to our next item on the agenda, SCR 24. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to move on to SCR 195, urging the members of the United States Congress to enact federal legislation granting statehood to the people of Washington, D.C. First up, we have Common Cause Hawaii.
Good morning, Vice Chair and Chair. Sandy Ma for Common Cause Hawaii. Thank you for hearing this measure. We support SCR 195. Our nation's capital is home to approximately 712,000 residents, and these residents have no representation in Congress. The majority of our nation's capital are people of color, and they are disenfranchised. So DC statehood is really a civil rights and social justice issue. So for these reasons, we support SCR 195. Thank you so much for scheduling this resolution and hearing this measure. I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We do not have anyone else signed up to testify. We do have a number of individuals who have submitted written testimony. Is there anyone else on Zoom or in person that wishes to testify on SCR 195? Seeing none, we don't have any questions, so thank you. We're gonna move on to our next item on the agenda, SCR 24, recognizing April 7th through April 23rd, 2022 as Volunteer Week Hawaii throughout the state. We do not have anyone signed up to testify, but we do have a number of individuals that have sent testimony in support of the measure before us. Seeing that there's no one to testify, that means there's no one to answer questions. We're going to move on to our next item on the agenda, SCR 20, encouraging all counties of Hawaii to create a special number license plate design for the motor vehicles to commemorate the accomplishment of Carissa Kanani Moore. We do not have anyone signed up to testify. Is there anyone who wishes to testify on Zoom or in person? Seeing none, we do have one individual who has submitted testimony in support. Members, any questions? Seeing none, we're going to recess to get quorum, and then we're going to make a decision on these measures once we get quorum. All right, recess. reconvening the hearing on culture, arts, and international affairs. Agenda April 13th, 2022, 10 a.m. in room 329. We're going to recess again to get quorum, and we're going to reconvene here at 11:30. Recess. Reconvening our 10 a.m. agenda, right, April 13th, 2022, right here in room 329 on the Committee on Culture, Arts, and International Affairs to hear the following resos. Members, we're going to vote all of this out as is, starting with SCR 203, urging the Department of Land and Natural Resources to develop programs to recapture, retain, and share the cultural and environmental knowledge of Iwakala. Recommendation is to pass as is. Members discussion. Seeing none, chair for the vote.
Members voting on SCR 203, chair's recommendation is to pass out as is. Chair and vice chair vote aye. Rep Har, excuse. Rep Capella,
Aye.
Rep Nishimoto, excused. Rep Yamane,
Aye.
Rep Ward, excused. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Moving on to SCR 50, SD1, designating the Waianae Moku Puno Council as an advisory resource to the elected members of the legislature of the state of Hawaii representing the Waianae Moku community. Recommendation is passed as is. Members discussion. Seeing none, chair for the vote.
Members, chair's recommendation is to vote on SCR 50 as is, noting all members present and the excused absence of Rep Har, Rep Nishimoto, and Rep Ward. They will be excused for the remainder of this vote. Anyone voting reservation? Anyone voting no? Chair recommendation is adopted.
Moving on to SCR 179, designating March 10th as Inuit Atoll Marshall Islands Liberation Day. Recommendation is to pass as is. Members discussion. See none, chair for the vote.
All right, members voting on SCR 179 SD1. Chair's recommendation is to pass as is, noting all members present in the excused absence of Nishimoto, Ward, and Har. Anyone voting no? Any reservations? Seeing none, chair recommendation is adopted.
Moving on to SCR 118 SD1, requesting that the Creative Resurgence Task Force continue to examine and determine measures and establish policies and programs to build and foster creativity and innovation through the arts, culture, and humanities in the state. Recommendation is to pass as is. Members discussion. Seeing none, chair for the vote.
All right, members voting on SCR 118 SD1. Recommendation is to pass as is, noting all members present and the excused absence of Nishimoto, Har, and Ward. Anyone voting no? Anyone reservation? Seeing none, your recommendation is adopted.
Moving on to SCR 83, requesting the Hawaii Council for the Humanities State Foundation on Culture and the Arts and the Hawaii State Public Library System to collaborate for the establishment of the Hawaii State Poet Laureate Program. Recommendation is to pass as is. Members discussion. Seeing none, chair for the vote.
Members voting on SCR 83. Recommendation is to pass as is, noting all members present and the excused absence of Har, Ward, and Nishimoto. Anyone voting reservations? Any voting no? Seeing none, your recommendation is adopted.
Moving on to SCR 72 SD1, establishing a sister state relationship between the state of Hawaii, United States of America, and the autonomous region of Materia, Portugal. Recommendation is to pass as is. Members discussion. Seeing none, chair for the vote.
All right, members voting on SCR 72 SD1. Recommendation pass as is, noting all members present, excused, Har, Nishimoto, Ward. Anyone voting reservations? No. Seeing none, chair recommendation is adopted.
Moving on to SCR 121, urging the counties of the state to work with Puumakahikina and Humuhula to establish policies protecting hula. Recommendation is to pass as is. Members discussion. Seeing none, chair for the vote.
Members voting on SCR 121, recommendation is to pass as is, noting all members present in the excused absence of Har, Nishimoto, Ward. Anyone voting no? Any reservations? Seeing none, chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Moving on to SCR 185 SD1, denouncing Russia's actions causing a humanitarian crisis in Ukraine and urging the United States Congress to take concrete action to support Ukrainian refugees and to increase the refugee limits for the United States and increasing funding related to those efforts. Recommendation is to pass as is. Members discussion. Seeing none, chair for the vote.
Members voting on SCR 185 SD1, recommendation is to pass as is, noting all members present in the chair's absence. Har, Nishimoto, Ward, anyone reservations? No, seeing none, chair recommendation is adopted.
Moving on to SCR 212 SD1, requesting the governor to establish a Hawaii Commission on the United States Semi-Quincentennial by executive order. Recommendation is to pass as is. Members, discussion? Seeing none. Chair for the vote.
Members voting on SCR 212 SD1, recommendation is to pass as is, noting all members present in the excused absence of Har, Nishimoto, Ward, anyone voting no, anyone reservation? Seeing none, recommendation is adopted.
Moving on to SCR 132, requesting the University of Hawaii to report on the Pamantasan Council's system-wide efforts to improve the status of Filipinos at the University of Hawaii. Recommendation is to pass as is. Members, discussion? Seeing none, chair for the vote.
Members voting on SCR 132, recommendation is to pass as is, noting all members present in the excused absence of Har, Nishimoto, Ward, any reservations? Any no? Seeing none, your recommendation is adopted.
Moving on to SCR 195, urging the members of the United States Congress to enact federal legislation granting statehood to the people of Washington, D.C. Recommendation is to pass as is. Members, discussion? Seeing none, chair for the vote.
Members voting on SCR 195, recommendation is to pass as is, noting all members present in the excused absence Har, Nishimoto, Ward, anyone voting reservations, anyone voting no? Seeing none, chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Moving on to SCR 24 SD1, recognizing April 17th to April 23rd, 2022 as Volunteer Week Hawaii throughout the state. Recommendation is passed as is. Members, discussion? Seeing none, chair for the vote.
Members voting on SCR 24 SD1, recommendation is to pass as is, noting all members present in the excused absence of Har, Nishimoto, Ward, anyone voting no, anyone reservation? Seeing none, chair, recommendation is adopted.
On to our last item on the agenda, SCR 20, encouraging all counties of Hawaii to create a special number plate design for motor vehicles to commemorate the accomplishment of Carissa Kanani Moore. Recommendation is to pass as is. Members, discussion? Seeing none, chair for the vote.
Members voting on SCR 20 SD1, recommendation is to pass as is, noting all members present in the excused absence of Har, Nishimoto, Ward, anyone voting reservations? No. Seeing none, chair, recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Hearing is adjourned.